Now that you know how to use strings, I'm going to be introducing numbers. Numbers in JavaScript are exactly what you'd expect. It's a way to keep track of a number, let's say someone's age. You can do any basic math operators you want, like adding two numbers together, subtracting numbers, dividing numbers. All of the basics are really easy to do. To get started, I want to create a new file in my Node Basics folder. I'm going to call it numbers.js. To create a number variable, it's much the same as creating a string. They get started in the exact same way using the var keyword. Next up, you have to name your variable. I'm going to call mine age. And if you want to set a value to that variable, you can use the equal sign, and you can type any number you like. In this case, I'm going to type 24. And that's it. To create a number, all you have to do is type out the numbers you want. So 24 is valid, 12.3, that looks good. Any of the basic numbers and decimals you want to use, you can use really easily. All right, let's set this back to 24. All the basic math operators are right there at your fingertips. I'm going to use a console log to print out the results of these math operators. To do that, I'm going to create a results variable. And notice I put a semicolon right after the variable name. There's two ways to create a new variable. You can create a new variable like age and initialize it with a value, or you can create a new variable for use later and not give it a default value. All right, let's do some math. The first thing I'm going to do is add age. So I'm going to set results equal to age plus 6. Oops, there we go. Now I'm going to console log age plus 6 equals results. Cool. Here, what I do is I type out the equation, and then I put the result at the end, making it a little easier to figure out which result I'm looking at. Now, if I run this from the terminal by typing node space numbers.js, you can see that age plus 6 equals 30 prints out to the screen. Very cool. Adding two numbers is as easy as using the plus sign. Now, the same thing is true with subtracting two numbers. I'm going to go ahead and take results equals age minus 1. Let's go ahead and write a console log so we can see what the result of that is. Console.log in parentheses with a semicolon at the end. I'm going to type the string age minus 1 equals. Then I'm going to add the value of results. Perfect. If I save the file and rerun it from the terminal, you'd expect that 23 would print to the screen. 24 minus 1 is indeed 23. And there it is. Age plus 6 is equal to 30. Age minus 1 is equal to 23. Very cool. All right, a couple more basic operators. You can multiply two numbers by using the asterisk symbol, which is Shift 8 on your keyboard. To do that, I'm going to set results equal to age times 3. Here, we'd expect age to be 72, which would be 24 times 3. That's probably the most complex math we're going to do in this entire course. Console.log age times 3 is equal to results. Perfect. Over in the terminal, I'm going to use the up arrow key to put the last command back into the command prompt. Hit enter, and you can see that age times 3 does indeed equal 72. Very cool. You can do the same thing with division. So if I want to take results and set it equal to age divided by 6, all you have to do is use the / key, which should be just to the left of the Shift key on your keyboard. I'm going to console log this out so we can view the results in the terminal. Age divided by 6 equals, 24 divided by 6 is going to be 4. Results. Now we can head over back to the terminal, rerun numbers.js, and you can see 4 prints to the screen. Perfect. You can also do remainder division. So in this case, I'm going to say I want to set results equal to age divided by 5. This time I'm using the percent sign, which is Shift 5 on your keyboard. Now what's going to happen here is it's going to take age divided by 5, and it's going to return the remainder. If you remember, the remainder is anything that's left over after you divide the number down into its smallest unit. In this case, if we're dividing 24 by 5, we can do that 4 times with a remainder of 4. I'm going to type this out, console.log, age divided by, with the remainder 5, equals results. Fantastic. Now if we rerun this from the terminal, you can see 4 prints out. So if you put 5 into 24 once, you get 5. Twice, you get 10. 3 times, 15. 4 times, you get 20. And you can't do it again because there's only 4 numbers left, so you have a remainder of 4. All right, a couple more quick ones. These ones are actually more useful than you might think. A lot of times in JavaScript, you want to do something like this. You want to take a number variable, and all you want to do is increment it by 1. Maybe you're keeping track of seconds or days. Maybe you're keeping track of the number of to-do items someone has in their to-do list. Either way, adding a number or subtracting, like this, by 1 is very common. And this statement's perfectly valid. I want to take the value of results, and I want to set it equal to whatever results is minus 1. I'm going to go ahead and console log this out to the screen. I'm just going to simply say minus 1 results. I'm going to run it, and you can see that 3 prints to the screen. That is because results is still set to 4 from up here. All right, so we have a variable whose value is 4. We take that 4 and we subtract 1. Perfect, we get 3. Now there's actually shorthand because this is so common. The shorthand is results minus minus. Results minus minus is going to subtract 1 from the variable. It's exactly the same as the statement we just had written, only it's shorthand, so it's a little easier to use. Now we can also do plus plus. Plus plus is going to add 1 to the variable. So in this case, if we rerun the program, we'd expect 5 to print out. And here you can see 5 does indeed print. These two incrementing and decrementing operators are really useful. We're going to be using them quite a bit in the course. There's nothing confusing about them. Just know that it simply takes the value of a variable and adds or subtracts 1. Now, there is one part that is a little confusing. Let's take a look at that real quick, and then I'm going to give you a challenge to wrap up the video. I'm going to go ahead and console.log a new variable I'm going to create. I'm going to call it num for now. Up here on line 22, just above the console log, I need to create that num variable because it doesn't exist. I'm going to go ahead and create a new variable called num, and I'm going to set it equal to 19. Perfect. Now, what I want to show you is the order of operations that happens when you do plus plus, because you can also use plus plus before the variable name. When I use plus plus before the variable name, it returns the value after incrementing. Now what that means is that console log is going to be printing 20. If I rerun the program, you can see 20 prints out, so everything looks good. If I put the plus plus after, it's going to return 19, and then it's going to add the number to it. So when I'm referencing the variable and I'm using plus plus, first I get the raw variable, then 1 gets added. Let's take a look at that. If I rerun the program after saving my file, you can see 19 prints to the screen. But if I add a new console log just below, and I rerun the program, you can see we get 19 and then 20. So num is indeed being increased by 1, but not until this console log has already run. If that sounds confusing, don't worry. Most of the time, we're going to be using plus plus or minus minus on a line by its own, so it doesn't really matter which one you use. But if you run across some weird situation where you can't figure out why the number is off by 1, it could be because you're referencing the variable as you are adding 1 to it. All right, let's delete everything in Numbers.js and do a quick challenge. What I want you to do is create 3 variables, each for a different test grade. The numbers should be anywhere from 0 to 100%. Once you have them, I want you to add up the numbers, divide it by the total number of tests, and then print out the person's average grade. Remember, if you want to get the average of 2 tests, you simply add up their scores and divide it by 2. So for 3 tests, all you have to do is add up the 3 numbers and divide them by 3. Before you do, there's one last thing I need to tell you. When you're doing division, addition, subtraction, and multiplication, I'm sure you remember my dear Aunt Sally. My dear Aunt Sally stands for multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, because that's the order the operators happen in. So if I do something like this, 12 plus 100 divided by 2, to try to get the average grade, what's going to happen is 100 divided by 2 is going to be executed first, which is 50, and that's going to be added to 12, which is 62. What we really want is 12 to be added to 100, which is 112, and then we want that to get divided by 2, which is 56. To set the order of operations, all you have to do is wrap it in parentheses. Whoops. Just like this. So when you're creating the final results variable and you log it out to the screen, make sure to use parentheses to fix the order of operations. All right, give that a shot, run it in the terminal, play around with the grades a little bit, and when you're done, you can click play. Cool. Hopefully that worked out pretty well for you. Here's how I could have done it. First up, I'm going to create my 3 variables. I'm going to create a test1, test2. I'm going to set that equal to 75. And lastly, test3. These are some pretty poor grades. Okay, now that we have our 3 grades, we need to add them up and divide them by 3. I'm going to create a new average grade variable. And on the right-hand side of the equal sign, I'm going to set it equal to, in parentheses, test1 plus test2 plus test3. Okay, now we have our test scores added. Outside of the parentheses, I want to divide it by 3. Perfect. So we take our 3 test scores, we add them up, and then we divide that number by 3. Now that we have the average grade, I'm going to use console log to print a message to the user. Your average grade is... Then I'm going to reference the average grade variable. Awesome. All right, let's go give this a try. I'm going to head over into the terminal, use the up arrow key to load up the last command, and hit enter. Here, you can see my average grade is 49. Let's go ahead and change test 1. I'm going to say that I got a 100% on my first test, an 80% on my second test, and a 90% on my third test. If I rerun that from the terminal, you can see my new average grade is 90, which is exactly what you'd expect. Very cool. So congratulations on figuring out numbers. We're going to be working with them throughout the course, but I promise it's going to be nothing more complicated than what you see here. I'll see you next time, where we're going to talk about if statements.